Title: The Forgotten Tiananmen Incident. China's first great protest of 1976. Description: Before 1989, there was another massive gathering in Tiananmen Square that shook the foundations of power in China. In April 1976, hundreds of thousands of people gathered to mourn a beloved leader, Premier Zhou Enlai, in an event that turned into a powerful protest against the political turmoil of the Cultural Revolution. This is the story of the 1976 Tiananmen Incidenta. Pivotal, yet often overlooked, moment in modern Chinese history that set the stage for the country's future. Timestamps. 0 o'clock introduction. The other Tiananmen 1. 12 A nation in mourning. The death of Zhou Enlai, the gathering storm, poems and wreaths. For 15 April 5 Teachi. The crackdown 550. The aftermath. A political earthquake. 720 The reversal. Deng Xiaoping's return. 845 Legacy. Why 1976 matters. 940 Conclusion. When you hear the words Tiananmen Square, one specific year probably comes to mind. (1989). But 13 years earlier, another massive, spontaneous gathering took place on that very same ground. It was an event that also defined a generation, challenged the political order, and set the stage for the future of modern China. This is the story of the 1976 Tiananmen incident, a powerful and emotional chapter of history that is too often forgotten. In the winter of 1976, China was a nation holding its breath. The country was in the final, chaotic years of the Cultural Revolution. A decade of intense political turmoil. Its leader, Mao Zedong, was frail and in failing health. And on January 8th, the man many saw as the steady hand guiding the nation, Premier Zhou Enlai, passed away. Zhou was a deeply respected figure. To millions, he represented moderation, pragmatism, and a degree of compassion in a period of radical excess. His death unleashed a tidal wave of genuine, heartfelt grief across the country. People openly wept in the streets. They felt they had lost not just a leader, but a protector. The government, however, controlled by the radical faction known as the Gang of Four, tried to suppress this public mourning. They saw it as a subtle challenge to their authority. Official memorials were kept brief and low-key. Newspapers were ordered to limit their coverage. But this attempt to stifle grief only made the people more determined to express it. The stage was set for a confrontation, and Tiananmen Square would be its center. It began in late March, leading up to the Qingming Festival, a traditional day for honoring ancestors. People started bringing handmade wreaths to the monument, to the people's heroes. In the middle of the square, they were laid in memory of Zhou Enlai. Soon, the base of the monument was buried under a mountain of white paper, flowers, and wreaths. But it wasn't just about mourning. People began posting poems, eulogies, and political essays. These writings praised Zhou Enlai, but they also contained thinly veiled criticisms of the Gang of Four and their radical policies. One famous poem spoke of devils who laugh madly while the people weep. Everyone knew who the devils were. The square became a public forum, a democratic wall of sorts, where ordinary citizens expressed frustrations they couldn't voice anywhere else. Hundreds of thousands of people, workers, students, government employees flocked to the square each day to read the poems, lay their own wreaths, and feel a sense of shared purpose. For a brief moment, it felt like the people had reclaimed this symbolic heart of the nation. But the authorities were watching. They saw this outpouring not as grief, but as a counter-revolutionary act. The morning of April 5th arrived, and everything changed. People who came to the square discovered that all the wreaths, poems, and tributes had been removed overnight. A cordon of police and militia blocked access to the monument. Anger erupted. A crowd of tens of thousands gathered, demanding the return of their wreaths. They chanted slogans, delivered impassioned speeches, and confronted the authorities. For a few hours, the crowd's anger boiled over. A police vehicle was overturned, and a command post was briefly set on fire. The protest had turned from a solemn memorial into a direct defiance of the state. As evening fell, the government decided to act decisively. Under the cover of darkness, Thousands of security forces and militia members, armed with wooden clubs, moved into the square. They surrounded the remaining protesters and began a brutal crackdown. The official narrative would later claim the square was cleared peacefully, but eyewitness accounts tell a different story of people being beaten and arrested. The 1976 Tiananmen incident, which had begun with flowers and poetry, ended in violence and suppression. In the immediate aftermath, the incident was officially condemned as a counter-revolutionary political incident. The blame was pinned on Deng, a pragmatic leader who had been mentored by Zhou Enlai and was seen as the Gang of Four's primary political rival. Deng, who had only recently been rehabilitated after being purged earlier in the Cultural Revolution, was stripped of all his positions and placed under house arrest once again. The Gang of Four seemed to have won. They had crushed the protest and eliminated their main opponent, but their victory was short-lived. The crackdown backfired, creating widespread public resentment and further isolating the radicals. The incident had shown the deep level of popular support for the moderate policies represented by Zhou Enlai and Deng Xiaoping. The people had made their choice clear. Just 5 months later, in September 1976, Mao Zedong died. Without his protection, the Gang of Four was vulnerable. Less than a month after Mao's death, they were arrested in a swift coup, bringing the decade-long Cultural Revolution to an end. With the radicals gone, the political tide turned. The demand to re-evaluate the Tiananmen incident grew louder. In late 1978, the party leadership officially reversed its verdict. The incident was no longer a counter-revolutionary act, but a completely revolutionary action. It was a heroic protest against the Gang of Four. This reversal was a monumental political victory for the people and paved the way for Deng Xiaoping's final return to power. Deng would soon become China's paramount leader, launching the era of reform and opening up that would transform the country's economy and society. So we do it in 1976 Tiananmen incident matters so much. First, it was the first massive, spontaneous, and leaderless popular protests of its kind in the history of the People's Republic. It demonstrated that even in a highly controlled society, ordinary people could mobilize to make their voices heard. Second, it played a direct role in the power struggle that ended the Cultural Revolution. The popular support shown for Deng Xiaoping gave his political allies the mandate they needed to oust the Gang of Four. And finally, it served as a powerful precedent. The memory of 1976, of a people's movement that successfully influenced political change, would linger in the national consciousness, echoing in the events that would unfold in that same square 13 years later. The 1976 Tiananmen incident is a story of courage, grief, and political consequence. It is a testament to the power of collective expression and a crucial, defining moment on China's long and complex path to modernity. Understanding this event is essential to understanding the forces that have shaped the China we see today. Thank you for watching. If you found this video educational, please consider liking and subscribing for more deep dives into history. See you next time.